Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark. Welcome to Tara Institute Introduction to Buddhism. We're going to cover a few topics that we've covered in previous weeks, but also maybe a few new ideas as well. Just before I start, so who is first time here for Monday night teachings? Yeah, welcome. And welcome, yeah, great. And you too, yeah, and you, great. Well, welcome on board. And yeah, and the rest of you, you've been, because I reckon you're new too. Okay, well, I recognise quite a few faces, which is good. So, as I've mentioned before, so motivation in Buddhism, it's probably one of the most important factors or teachings is on having a good motivation for whatever activity you do. It's taught that if you have a very good motivation for whatever activity you undertake, the outcome will generally be pretty good. And if you go into any sort of activity with the motivation sort of middling or even a little bit negative, then generally the outcome's not so great or could be just, nothing. So it's very important to have a very good motivation while you're here tonight. So as some sort of impetus for the result, a good result. So another tenet of Buddhism is that a positive action will lead to a positive result. So does that ring true for everyone? Or is it sort of like, well, not really? Yes? Okay. In all cases? Mm. Yes. Yeah, so generally there's sort of two forces at play, like, creating a good cause, so having a very good motivation for your action and then performing whatever action it is. There's also, hindrances that can get in your way, obstacles, so that can occur. So you think, well, I had a very good motivation and I performed a good action, but the result wasn't that great. So that can happen because when we look at the idea of positive action and positive result, it's not always in the same timeline that we're looking at. So we're looking at it from just an immediate action. And I've used this example before. I gave $10 to someone, and my motivation was good. I had generosity. And the result, was the result good? Maybe the person who received it wasn't that appreciative, or abused me, or there wasn't. So if I was doing it for reputation, then maybe I would have gotten upset myself that the gift or the donation wasn't received very well. So sometimes the cause, you don't see the effect straight away, but quite often though you do. So we're talking, there's two levels here. So in Buddhism they also talk about causes and conditions coming together to lead to a result. So we can talk about that in this lifetime. And Geshe Doga uses a good example of when you're young, you work hard and you study and you work hard. You put a lot of effort into your schooling and then your jobs, your career, and you really put a lot of effort in, and then later things get easier, that the results will come. So he uses that example of having positive motivation and an action, and then the result will come. Might not be immediate, but it will come in time. So I think it's a good example. We also talk in Buddhism about the results actually occurring, maybe not in this lifetime, but in future lifetimes. So we introduce the idea of cause and effect occurring in this lifetime, but also in future lifetimes. So it's hard to get a handle on it, but in Buddhism we say, all right, we're the result of whoever we were previously, whatever positive imprints were there, and then that ripened into Mark who's here today. So there's a continuum, and there was a good, probably a good male or good female practitioner potentially, someone who did something good that enabled the continuum of Mark to be born and to have a good life, etc., and good faculties and good conditions. So that's a positive action leading to a positive result, and we can all look at that ourselves and go, well, we're pretty fortunate, aren't we? So we live in this southern continent. We don't have war. We don't have famine. We don't have pestilence. We don't have epidemic, pandemic. Things sort of pretty much were pretty good. And whereas you look at other parts of the world, even if you're born as a human being with a good family and everything, it can be very problematic. So that's a positive action leading to a positive result. So last week I covered in a bit more detail a few different definitions of the person. So, and I'll just go through a few from the various different schools that have studied this intently. So they've used, they're going to listen to someone talking about it, and then they're going to sort of ruminate or contemplate about whether that teaching's correct, and then they're going to meditate on it. So it's like, okay, they're using those wisdom tools to develop these ideas about, what is the person? So the first one is, I'm listening and then thinking about and then meditating. They're the three wisdom tools that we are using tonight, but also are good to use all the time if we can. So the first school is mind only. So they've examined what the person is, and they've gone, I can identify that there's a director of that person's life, which is the mind. And that makes a lot of sense, isn't it? If you think, the person's life is like a film, and there's a sort of a camera going there, and then there's a director who's actually going, go left, go right, do this, do that. So that's one definition of a person. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they're saying that the mind is the person. And what they do is they say anything external to that mind can't exist separate to the mind itself. So they've actually have a very subtle view of what the person is, but they've sort of said, all external things like a solid table, unfindable, so therefore doesn't exist separately to the mind apprehending it. So quite an interesting one, school, that one. And anyway, there's another. The next school is a little bit more subtle. They say the person is the subtle mental consciousness. So I spoke about this last week. That subtle mental consciousness is that little bit of mental consciousness that when you pass away, the body and the mind dissolve, and there's this very fine consciousness that goes to the next life, the continuum. And they say that's the person. However, they posit that external phenomena do exist. So that one's a little bit more getting towards the truth, because you're going, okay, I'm not denying external objects, and there's definitely a continuum of Mark potentially, so. That continuum goes on and on. So the person must be that subtle mental consciousness. So it's good, and this is where you need to examine: does that make sense? Because that was one of the teachings of the Buddha: is don't believe everything he said or was written about him. You have to examine it for yourself. So they posit, this school, this posits a subtle mental constants of persons. They say on the base of the person, there's something findable on the body or the mind that you can find when you look hard enough. So that's interesting, isn't it? So he's marked the arms, the legs, the chest, the heart, the head, the mind, where they're saying if you look, there'll be an essence of mark findable somewhere. Does everyone understand that one? That's a little bit more subtle than the previous sort of school, but it's still positing a external phenomena in a person and a consciousness, but it's sort of saying there's a findable mark, for example. So that's that school. Okay, so and the most subtle is there's a continuum there. So there's a person, and the person is merely labelled on the valid base. So whatever the valid base is for that person. So in my case, it's the body and the mind, and that's mark. So that definition is also applicable to the external phenomena, like the red table. So it's merely labelled because it's got the right constituents. It's red and it's got a top and 4 legs, so yep, that's a red table. And similarly, I'm not Jane. So, because there's no point labelling, that fellow at the front is Jane. That's not correct, because I don't have any of the qualities or constituents of Jane at all. So it has to be a valid base to start with. Can anyone see whether that particular definition's okay, or because that's the most subtle definition in Buddhism of the person. It's like, okay, that one, the one that merely labelled. And it's quite a simple idea, okay, merely labelled by the mind in dependence on the valid base. And you don't go any further than that. You don't have to, have a director, sort of filming the life, or a subtle mental continuum that's findable. So you can just say, whatever's formed, come together. That's the person. So I think it's a good definition because it allows for the base changing. So mark can change moment to moment, and certainly the mark from when I was a baby or a boy is different to the mark I am today. But you can still say, oh, that's Mark. You can see some photos. There he is, and this is what he's turned out to be now. So that's good. So it allows for the changes that occur, because some of the non-Buddhist schools point to a mark, for example, that's fixed, unchanging. You go, oh, okay, that's Mark, forever Mark. That's it. The essence of Mark. There's no, so there's a bit of a dichotomy there. You go, all right, one's sort of saying that it can accommodate a mark that's evolving and changing, and the other one says, well, Mark's Mark, the essence of Mark. So so labelling the person on the basis of the constituents coming together. So we call that conventional truth. So by convention, there's Mark, and by convention, there's a table. So it all works because it works for everyone else as well, because that's how things operate, don't they? If someone said, "Oh, this is a fridge," we go. Most people would go, "No, it's not." Because by convention we have a definition we've agreed to. And similarly, if someone said, "Oh, that's Jane, not Mark, up the front," they go, "Oh no, that's not correct." So you can't just label it and then it's true. You have to have an agreed convention. So why do Buddhists spend so much time on what is the person? So that's it's a rhetorical question, but it's pretty much a very important question. So really, the first is that even though we can, these yogis and scholars have defined what the person is in a pretty good way, it's by convention. Unfortunately for us, things don't appear that way. So we appear to exist from our own side independent of any causes and conditions, and similarly so do other objects. So yep, the table, it's solid, it's there, it doesn't need to be defined, it exists without us having to label. And same with the idea of Mark. So and that's Mark appears that way too, like existing from my own side. But also I have an innate belief that that's the way I exist and that's the way everything exists. So there's two things: there's an appearance, and there's then the innate belief. So we accept, and I'm using this in broad terms. So we accept that unconditionally. So we don't question that's how things appear to us. So even though we know things come together through causes and conditions, when we view something, we don't worry about the causes and conditions. We just say, "Oh yeah, there's Mark, solid, permanent, etc." So that's how I appear, and that's how I perceive myself. So it's quite a so to dislodge those ideas, we need to use the listening, thinking about, and meditating. So, because they're quite difficult ideas to actually think about and and combat, if you like. And so, if I have this innate view of myself as existing independently from my own side, what's the problem with that? That's how I've always existed. So is there a problem with that? So the Buddha said that things don't exist the way they appear. However, when we have that view of ourselves, what arises is we cherish ourselves more than others as a result of that idea that, oh yeah, it's Mark, permanent, he's solid. So then I have that feeling arises where I'm more important than everyone else. So it's natural. And they call that self-cherishing. I'm more important than everyone else. So from that idea, then the problematic emotions arise, like anger and jealousy and attachment and pride and arrogance. And so there's 84,000 of these afflicted states that arise just as a result of a misapprehension. So it's quite deeply rooted and difficult to dislodge, but we can do it. So anyway, So how do we actually approach that? So there are two things in Buddhism. They talk about, well, you should be creating virtuous actions, and so there's a few things with creating virtuous actions. So virtuous actions like giving, acting with patience. What is it? What's another one? Ingrid, you know them all. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, just virtuous actions. So. Patient, yeah, being patient, yeah, being kind to others, looking after your family and friends. Yeah, there's a whole lot of positive actions that we can do. So that's one side of it. And what that does is when you're creating a virtuous action, like behaving with patience or being generous or acting with good morality, it creates a good habit in you for the next time. So, if you can act with patience towards others, even if they're sort of yelling at you and whatever, then as you develop that, then it becomes easier next time. You won't get angry, and anger is if you like, the opposite of patience. So patience is a virtuous action where but anger is one where you're just about ready to explode and nothing can stop you. So it creates positive habits, positive imprints and good habits. So the positive imprints are important because to achieve that state of mind where you're free of these afflicted states, you need a store of virtuous positive potential or karma. So you need to be continually replenishing that store with good actions, good deeds. As we're dependent on each other, then any positive action you perform may lead to a positive outcome for others. So if you're good to your parents or your family and friends, then they're happier as a result. So there's even a talk about if you practice non-harm, it's actually a negative, isn't it? You're not doing anything, you're just not harming someone. For some people, they're happy that they're not being harmed because their usual experience is that everyone harms them. So for you to not harm them, they're really happy at that. And you think, okay, so that's not really, you're not actually doing much other than refraining from harming, but for the other person, their experience is really good, very positive for them and positive for you, but the outcome is good for the others, so the other person. Let's do a little bit of meditation. So we can you can be sitting or cross-legged. So whatever's comfortable. So main thing is you keep your back straight, and then in our tradition, so we have the palms together and the thumbs touching and pointing back towards the navel. So you're just resting your hands on your lap and just pointing it back towards your navel. And Geshe Doga indicates that this creates a very good energy flow, which is great. So the focus of our attention is going to be the breath going in and out through the nostrils. So we're going to breathe through our nose. So we close our mouth, we put our tongue on our top palate, and then our eyes are sort of half closed, half open. So we're just letting the impression of light in, but they're not completely closed and they're not wide open. So let's begin. So we'll just do some breathing meditation tonight. So breathe in and out through your nostrils. So just bring your attention back to the room and open your eyes. So that wisdom tool of meditation. So for practicing meditation, they say it's very good to do it at least do it regularly. So once a day maybe, and find a spot. Find a place that you like and you're comfortable in, and to do it consistently. And some advice from Geshe Doga is not to do it for very long when you're beginning. Just do a short meditation at 1 minute, 2 minutes, whatever, because you want to have some focus, and you want to stop the meditation when before you feel, oh, this is a drag. I won't do this again. You've overstretched your head or whatever, and you think I'm not going to do that because it's too much. So you want to just do a little bit, and then gradually over time just increase the duration once your focus gets clearer. And you can manage that. So just good. So the best outcome of the meditation is, particularly when you're looking at the breath, is it brings some peace. So because the breath's quite natural, in and out, so we do it all the time without thinking. So focusing on that, it immediately sort of results in calm. So it's a bit like the waves on the ocean rolling in. If you're ever watching them, it does bring a natural calm to you. So it's like that with the breath. So the other good benefit of meditation is the things that you've been listening to and then thinking about, you can actually penetrate more deeply when you do a little bit of meditation about the same topic or idea. And would anyone like to hazard a guess to why that may be? That it would be a little bit more deep? Yeah, Ingrid? Yes, you're honing your power of concentration. That's a very good rationale. But the other one is that goes with that is as you're doing your meditation, there's a much more subtle. You're using a much more subtle level of mind that is sharp and clear naturally. So once you removed all the obstacles from the outside and you're just focusing on that, the mind actually becomes more subtle. And Geshe Doga, again, when he's talking about that energy flow, that's what he's referring to, that it's what's happening within. So you can utilise that. So the great yogis of various different religions and traditions, they've all got most of them have got some sort of meditational arm or bent. They focus on developing, as Ingrid said, some sort of single-pointed concentration, and their minds become so sharp and clear that they can stay for, a few minutes, an hour, a day, a year. That their concentration is unwavering, and that's not coming from an external party. That's their own power, through their own sort of mental faculties, if you like. So that's possible, isn't it? So it's not like, oh well, it's impossible. I can't even exist without my phone. I have to be amused all the time. How could I then go and meditate with some sort of concentration for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever? So, but it's doable. So that's good, isn't it? Because if we couldn't do anything about it, then we'd be saying, well, I might as well forget that any teachings about Buddhism or anything. I'll just get my phone out and scroll. So that because we couldn't change anything, or develop anything. The other good thing about meditation is, and we'll do this a little bit. We'll do another little bit of meditation later. So this is to do with when we're examining the afflictive emotions in meditation. We can examine it, and if it gets too painful or too close to the bone, we can pull back. So that's a good thing, isn't it? Because the last thing you want is someone saying, oh, you've got to go dive deep and go back and look and and you sort of go into the sort of regression and you go, oh, it's actually making me feel worse. So you don't. So with meditation, you have a level of control. You go, oh no, that's a bit too intense for me now. I'll just ease back a little bit. So you have that choice, and which is good. Yep. Okay. No, I think it's dealing with them. So with the schizophrenic, they don't have that emotional response or that afflictive response at all? Right, okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. So, yeah, I don't know too much about schizophrenia, but I know, so with the emotional afflictions, anger, jealousy, etc., we generally don't have to work very hard to bring up those feelings. Like we just have to think about a person or a situation, and then it'll come. It's pretty natural. And then the situation with meditation is you're controlling what happens with that. How you respond in the meditation to that situation or that feeling. So it would still be considered an afflictive state, and however, at that point, because you're in meditation, perhaps trying to bring it on, provoke it, it's not going to. It won't. I don't think bring you a negative result. As a result of Mark said to think about anger, and so I brought that up, and therefore I've just created a negative imprint of on my mind of more, for more anger in the future. So so meditation is a tool to try and understand the anger, and then pinpoint, and then deal with it. And as Ingrid said, patience is to develop patience is if you like, the opposite, one of the opposites, if you like, of anger. So to be in a situation where it's anger provoking, but to not act with anger, to act with some patience or forbearance is really good, because it means we're not liable to create a lot of harm. So in terms of the mind stream and stores of positive and even negative potential, they say with anger, it's one of the worst, because you can destroy a lot of the positive potential with even just one moment of anger where you kill someone, or you do something terrible just in a moment of rage. So you can wipe out a lot of good things that are on your mental continuum just through a moment of anger. So that's why anger is considered quite it's a volatile, afflictive emotion. So it needs to be controlled in some way. So that's a very good question. So because there are people also talking about mental states. There are some people who they're on medication for depression or that's bipolar, a whole lot of things, and for them to be going in and is not that great, because a lot of the time they're already in, they're already looking in and wallowing in, because that's whether it's chemical imbalance or whatever, but that's they're in that down state. So trying to make suggesting, you should do more and just go in and in, it's not that great. But for the vast majority of people, we don't have those issues potential. We can meditate without any problem and develop that skill. So it's interesting. So the lamas talk about, keep taking your medication, if that's what's prescribed, and do things very gently if you're going to endeavour to do something like meditation. So that's good advice, I think. So when we're meditating on virtuous things, being generous or what else? Rejoicing. So rejoicing is so one of the founder of this tradition is the great Lama Tsongkhapa. So he's the middle person, that statue there. So he was a great practitioner and scholar. So that when he was alive, people from different schools and traditions flocked to him, because he studied hard, but he also practiced very purely, and he developed a clear understanding of what to practice and what to discard and what to just set aside for now, which was really good, because one of the things he said was, if you want to gain merit quickly, this is this store of positive potential, the quickest way, the easiest way is to rejoice. So we can rejoice in our own good deeds, we can do that. But if we rejoice in other people's good deeds, we also accumulate positive potential from that, merit from that. So if like me, there's not much positive action occurring, but I rejoice in your merit and your merit, if I really do truly rejoice in the good things people do, then there's a positive result for me as well. So that's quite good, because it's an easy, if you like, idea to adopt, because you don't have to move, you don't have to do anything physical. It's just a mental thought, but it creates that store of positive potential for you. Anyway, the great Lama Tsongkhapa sort of espoused that idea, and I think it's a really good one. So, So with the afflicted state of anger, I mentioned that. Look, it's a negative state. It brings its own problems to us when we have it, and when other people have it, it brings problems for them and others. So when we look at afflicted emotions like anger and jealousy, etc., are there any circumstances where, it's great that Mark expressed himself and yelled at everyone, and are there any circumstances where that would be appropriate or that would be positive? That's a no, Carol? No. Yes. Anger. What about jealousy? No positive for jealousy? What about pride? Yes. So there's a few different. With pride's a good example, because there's a few different ideas here. There's pride where you have this puffed up sort of feeling of self-importance. Your head's too big to get through the door because you're so proud of yourself or whatever. So that's the one that Buddhism talks about. You shouldn't be cultivating that one, because that's not that great, because it's overestimating to a large degree. So you go, it's not that good. And then when you're overestimating yourself, you're underestimating everyone else. You look at me, how good I am, but you're doing it in comparison to everyone else. But then you need to have some level of confidence and belief in your own abilities. And so that's sort of, you'd say that's sort of, is that pride? No, it's really it's self-love or compassion for yourself. So you need to have that too, because we're not here to it's not an ascetic practice where you've got to wear what do we wear, sort of rough clothes and don't eat and drink, and like it's an ascetic type of, effectively we're going, right, you need to work with what you have and be happy with who you are and develop that, and that's enough, that's sufficient. Yeah, so so there's sort of I'm not sure, with parents I think it's a little bit more, we're extremely happy for them that they've turned out the way they have, and it reflects well on us. If you're a parent, we're parents, so you go, look at my kids, they've turned out how fabulous they are, and then you go, well, there's a bit of a glow of, well, I must have played a small part in that, but it's true though, you generally rejoice in your kids' achievements, and quite rightly, Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, yep. It could be, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, my kids are doing fabulously well. Yeah, it's like, yeah. So that's true. So we have to be very, very careful. But generally, I think it's good because I think also kids need positive affirmation as well. You know, they need good role models. They need someone to encourage them and to steer them through. And sometimes when you give them oh, well done, that's really good, they'll appreciate it no end. You think, oh, well, I said it, but they didn't do it. But then it goes in, and then they remember, oh yeah, Dad, I remember Dad when you encouraged me to keep going. You know, it was tough. I thought, okay. So things like that are very effective. So, and also when you're turning it away from yourself, the self-cherishing, and it's more virtuous, I think, because it's not focused on, Carol, what a great mum you are, and how, great mentor and everything. Effectively, you're talking really about the achievements of your kids, isn't it? So that's really good. So we'll just do, so we did some breathing meditation. So the breathing meditation is a good precursor to every other form of meditation because it calms the mind, brings it peace. And then we'll do a little bit of analytical meditation. So we'll do a little bit of breathing, and then we'll focus on the afflictive emotion of anger. So just get into your meditation posture again. So just gently breathing through your nostrils, just in and out. Bring the focus to the breath as it goes in and out through the nostrils. So with this anger meditation, so bring to mind the person or situation which evokes anger in you, and really go into that feeling of anger. Feel it just rising in you. So when we examine the anger, is it an overestimation of the situation when we experience it? Does the anger exist on its own, or does it come about through causes and conditions within us? Does the anger bring any satisfaction or happiness to us at that moment? As we examine the anger, do we see it as fixed and solid or more passing? And lastly, just switch our focus to our breath, coming in and out, and then examine what happens to the intensity of the anger when we change our focus to the breath. Again, just bring your awareness back to the room. Open your eyes. So like the person, anger exists in the same way. So it's causes and conditions coming together. And so you say, by convention there's anger, and by convention there's a person. But when we examine both either the person or the anger, we can't pinpoint exactly where it is. Is that, when we were doing that meditation, did anyone find that? It was difficult to actually pinpoint where the anger was. Was it solid in here, and did it move around, and then when you switched your focus to the breath, did anything change? So anger's a good emotion to examine because it's so quick and intense, so it's very powerful, but you can look for it and then go, well, it seems to have disappeared. And then when I focus on my breath, so I've taken my attention away from anger, the intensity of anger plummets. So that's if you like, that highlights that it's not permanent within us. So that's another of the teachings of the Buddha, is all these afflicted states they're called adventitious. So they're merely obscuring the nature of the mind, which is pure and clear, but they can all be removed. So even anger. So that's good to know, isn't it? So again, that's the thing about positive change, that it can be permanent. So it doesn't just have to be, oh well, for the time I was meditating I was free of that afflictive state, but then the rest of my life it'd just be back to the usual, where afflictions arise all the time. So that's good. So there's a real positive, actually a real inspiration in that idea that, well, I've examined this intense anger, and then it sort of peaks, and then if I think about my breath and then when I look back, it's gone. It's disappeared completely. Like I can't, at the intensity, I can't bring it back. So that's a good sign. And so another one of the advantages of meditation is when you do that in meditation, when you come out of the meditation, you might think, oh, that nothing's changed, it's still... But then you've got this little bit of time and space. So the next time a situation is there that provokes you to anger, you're more of an observer rather than the angry person ready to explode with rage. So that's good as well, because that gives you a chance to say, well, I can practice patience, I can focus on my breath, I can examine the feeling of anger that I have and try and locate it, and then it seems to dissipate. So there's a lot of things you can do just through the practice of meditation for when you're out of meditation. So there's very good advantages for that in doing that. Does anyone else have any questions? I think we might wrap it up. So thank you, everyone. So we'll just quietly dedicate. So we bookend positive motivation at the beginning. We have all done an individual practice, and then at the end we try and protect that positive virtuous store by dedicating it. In this tradition, in the tradition we have, we try and dedicate it for the benefit of all beings. So not just which includes ourselves, includes everyone here, includes the whole of the country, includes as far as we can perceive or project out too, which is good. So it means we're not excluding anyone. So which is good. So let's do that just quietly. Okay, thank you, everyone. There's a cup of tea, I think, and biscuits in the tea room if anyone wants. So thank you, and I'll perhaps see some of you next week.